Okay, so we shall start today's Business Leaders Seminar. So I'm Ryosuke Oniwa, the host of this seminar, Associate Professor of Faculty of Medicine, Laboratory for Integrated Study for Health Information. Today, I'm very happy to introduce you the ALA. ALA is actually a research-oriented company about lactic bacteria, and they develop various market products, such as food supplement. And actually, this company is introduced by Mr. Asano from Learning Initiative. I think that you may know the Learning Initiative from GLEAD, HBP student, you know, right? So I'd like to give the mic to Mr. Asano, and he's going to introduce the ALA more in detail. So please.
Thank you very much, Oniwa Sensei, and hello everybody. I'm Takamitsu Asano from Learning Initiative, and I'm very much pleased to have this opportunity and introduce to you an ALA Research Institute. By the way, the relationship with ALA, let me explain a bit about it. Actually, I am also very much interested in ALA's product as well as the research capability. And then I started to have some relationship with them several months ago. And now that I know so much about the syllabus and the content and objective of the Business Leaders Seminar from Harada-san's era, I was thinking this would be a very good match between the ALA business as well as the business leaders seminars contents. So that's why I'm very much pleased to have this opportunity and give you this opportunity for your learning. And so today's speaker is a CEO of this company at Miura-san, and then research leader of Shin-san, and Daniela-san, who is a kind of customer of ALA and also the big supporter for the ALA. So let me pass my mic to Miura-san, Shin-san, Daniela-san. So hopefully you'll be happy to listen to their business as well as the miracle of lactic acid bacteria.
Thank you very much, Oniwa Sensei, Asano-san, and hello everybody. I'd like to thank you for today's opportunity. We are honored to be here to present our company, Buisines, which is lactic acid bacteria and its miracles. Today, I'd also like to introduce you Ms. Daniela Shiga, who wrote many cooking books and researches health and anti-aging. She will tell you her experience with our product Sagan. Hello, Daniela.
Hello, Mr. Miura. It is my great pleasure and honor to be part of this seminar today. For Tsukuba University, as I understand from Mr. Asano, there are students through the Zoom, both from the medical department as well as business department.
And life science?
Life science,
engineering?
Life science, yes.
Engineering as well.
Okay. So it's a mix of students. We will try to explain some medical concepts that everyone can understand. For the medical students, maybe not necessary, but we'll try to speak for everyone. Okay, so today, Mr. Miura, who is the CEO and President of ALA Corporation, and Dr. Shin, who is the researcher and Chief Director of the ALA laboratory, which is, as you can see in the slide, can I show the slide? Okay. The company's offices, the headquarters are in Shinjuku Island building, very fancy tall building, very beautiful offices. If you have the opportunity, please go and visit the offices. You will be impressed. But also the laboratory, the science and the production facility that Dr. Shin is in charge of, which is the picture below, where they have been researching and producing this kind of lactic acid bacteria-based products for over 30 years. And they have 2,000 strains of lactic acid bacteria, and they have researched like from the almost all of them, and they found out which are the most useful, and they managed to get a patent on their products, and they have research papers and with various universities, and hopefully with Tsukuba University as well. What do you think, Dr. Shin? It would be a great idea. Okay, so Mr. Miura, can you just explain next slide,
Okay.
today's agenda?
Our product is supplement that delivers bacteria as an immunomodulator agent. We will discuss the role of our patented bacteria, the discovery process, and the success of our products. One thing we want you to understand, while you may start from medical research to final product, we have started from the final product and did research to understand why and how it works. Typically, we firstly have strong interests in phenomena and their effect before the elucidation of mechanism. So even today, we have tons of things we don't know, while we know it really works. So we want to gap fill these unknown factors together with researchers like you by leveraging this opportunity later. As viruses and bacteria, the ally or the enemy for human, they can be both. Under the COVID-19 pandemic situation, we cannot help but see them as the enemy while, as well all know, some viruses and bacteria let us live and evolve ourselves. We ALA have so long been working on the research of how we highly effectively extract the power of our ALA, lactic acid bacteria, and apply those essences to improve the quality of life. We are honored to present our patented products containing lactic acid bacteria with some basic science regarding the intestinal flora on top of the history and spirit of our business, together with great achievement of the past researchers. This is a computer graphic picture of virus. It helps us imagine how it looks inside its structure. Some viruses and bacteria are attacking our immune system. Other peacefully coexist with us, helping the human physiology. Humans would not be alive if our microbiome and microbiome would not exist. You might have not yet heard of the later term. Daniela, can you explain what microbiome is?
Yes, this is a new term for most of the people, probably even for medical students. They might be more familiar to the virome concept, but actually this is a biohacking trend in the world, the microbiome awareness. Why? Because microbiome is in the same way as the microbiome, the viruses, it's also a large community of genetic material and exosome living inside our bodies. And they're also important to our health. Not all the viruses are bad viruses, some are beneficial. And, some are dormant and can be woken up in various situations. You have an amazing research opportunity to find the relationship between the microbiome and the microbiome, the virus and the bacteria, because together they have some interconnection, and they can support our system, or then they can break it down. And you will be appalled by the lack of information about the microbiome. it's always the microbiome that's studied. This is also a recent research, but from now on, this is a good open field for medical research and also for business research. So the microbiome and the microbiome, it all starts in the earth, in the dust and the earth, and from there it comes into our body. Mr. Miura has a book that he would like to recommend for you.
Yeah, I think this book might be interesting for some of you.
Yes, this is an English book. I will also read it.
Okay. And if we take antibiotics when not necessary and consume food sprayed with harmful chemicals, we will carpet bomb our friendly microbiota and we will get sick and die. My father started this company because he wanted to make sure his 4 children were healthy. I also have 4 children. I want them to be healthy, so I continue his legacy. My farmer friend, Horace Corporation President Hideaki Abe, does safe agriculture. He told me there is no future for us if we continue to kill the bacteria and microorganisms from the earth. They reflect the situation in our body.
Mr. Miura, your father is here attending the seminar. Hello. Can you tell us a few words about him, how he is and how healthy he is?
He's 81 years old. He's very healthy.
He's very healthy and still working, coming to the office every day.
Yeah. Okay.
So tell us about your friend, Mr. Abe,
Yeah.
the agriculture. Yes.
Yeah, he says, originally various soil bacteria inhabit the soil. These soil bacteria produce various components, which are the nutrients for plants. In other words, the diversity of soil bacteria has a great influence on the nutritional value of plants, of food produced by plants. The use of chemical fertilizers reduce the diversity of soil bacteria and reduce the nutritional value of food. Looking at soil in the ground, as you may know, there are many bacteria living. Like Abe-san says, it is reported that large diversity of bacteria gives good condition for plants, while small diversity of bacteria often lead to plant disease. This is actually same as what we see inside our intestine. Okay. As this comparative picture shows, the relationship between plant roots and soil bacteria is similar to the relationship between intestines and gut bacteria. Recent studies also demonstrate the relationship between the diversity of gut and soil bacteria.
Yes. Some Japanese doctors, and not only Japanese but around the world, have become very aware of this relationship between the soil, the nature, food, and our health condition. In this slide, we have Dr. Shirasawa. He's very outspoken with many TV programs and books. And I also collaborated with him in more than 30 cooking books. So I was his assistant and for several years. And I got him involved into organic agriculture, you know, the concept that we have abroad in America, for example, from farm to table. And if the agriculture, the soil is healthy, then we have healthy food, you know, organic, not chemicals, then we can heal the gut bacteria and we can take care of our health, to maintain the health, also to heal his patients in the clinic. So we did a lot of public awareness education seminars. It was very, very fruitful. One of my doctor friends, whose father got prostate cancer, is a very dear friend. He came to Dr. Shirasawa for help, and he is over, now I think he's 80, so it was in his late 70s. And also this person is an orthopedist, a doctor, and he got in his 70s prostate cancer, which unfortunately metastasized to the spine, which made him get lower body paralysis, which means he couldn't really walk. So he had to use a wheelchair, and he wanted to return back to his work because he has a clinic. So I recommended, Dr. Shirasawa, and Dr. Shirasawa recommended the product of ALA, Seigen. And we were very surprised to see that he improved, the PSA normalized, and he started to walk again. Well, of course, it's very late, very elderly person, but it did make an amazing recovery, and we're hoping, him to have a very long life. Mr. Miura, so I just touched a little bit about what your products can do, and the fact that medical doctors in Japan are open-minded and willing to use your products. So can you just tell us just a few words about your business?
Okay. Our business is driven by the following keywords: intestinal flora research, microbiota diversity, probiotic colonization, and biogenic products. And I'm talking about diversity.
Yes.
Do you know Yanomami tribe? They live in Amazon. Yeah. Indigenous Yanomami tribe in the Amazon has been isolated until 2008. Their intestinal flora has a large number of bacteria compared to humans in urban area of the United States. And also decreased diversity in modern people and increased disease such as obesity, asthma, and diabetes. And actually, nowadays, we can find so many books regarding the effects of these microorganisms. Okay, then let us go to the next topic, intestinal flora and our company. We have 11 products based on fermented soy metabolites that improve the intestinal environment and produce immunomodulation of the immune system. In every product, we use soybean milk fermented product metabolites of several bacteria. Each product is made to target specific function and help with physiological issues. This is just basic information of how much we are surrounded by bacteria. Bacteria are more diversified than our cell and DNAs. And if we take a look at the composition of intestinal flora in each person, it is also highly diversified. These are very, very internal data. Shin-san's actual data. Shin-san, can you please share this to us?
Yes. Good afternoon, distinguished professors and students. It's my honor to be present my research to you. In 2017, I was having a stomach pains, and when I did my gastroscopy, I found out I had Helicobacter pylori. I decided to use myself for research, so I tested the composition of my intestinal flora by taking a stool sample. I found out that after 7 days of antibiotics, my microbiota diversity was heavily reduced, and I had 0 bifidobacteria. Another interesting data is that after stopping antibiotics, I continued to take living bifidobacteria prescribed by doctor, but it did not colonize in my intestine even in 6 months, even if diversity increased. On the other hand, after 1 month's intake of our products, bifidobacteria appeared. It seems that the number of bifidobacteria which had been faintly living and lurking increased by adjusting the intestinal environment. Similarly, if you look at the figure on the right, the species and Shannon-Wiener index, these are numerical and diversity indexes. They show very well the situation. For example, before antibiotics, I had more than 1,000 species of intestinal bacteria, but after antibiotics, it remarkably got down to less than 200 species. Additionally, I also tracked the amount of short-chain fatty acids. This also shows similar trend as we have shown in the composition of bacteria. My own data was surprising and intriguing, but it backed perfectly my own published research paper from 2014. I invite you to replicate my research and see the data for yourself. For those interested, I brought you some hard copies of my paper, and I can also send you by email. Yes.
Here are the papers. So, one is titled "The Effect of Soybean Milk Fermented Product on Intestinal Microbiota and Colon Carcinogenesis," and the other one is "Anti-Tumor Activity of Heat-Killed Lactobacillus plantarum PF-LP284 on MET-A tumor cells in BALB-C mice." So you can actually, if you're interested, you can read this. Yes. So the next slide. Yes. When we are born, our first contact with microbiota is actually through the birth canal of our mothers and vagina. Children that are born through cesarean, unfortunately, they don't have this contact. And nowadays, doctors have become very aware that it's important to give that richness of bacteria. And they start now to take from the mother's vagina bacteria and put it on the baby skin or inside the mouth, lips, because this will protect the child. Also, breastfeeding is very important. Studies show that if children are not breastfed, or if they're breastfed for very short periods, less than 2 years, they will develop respiratory problems like childhood asthma, but also this will be linked later in life to obesity. And there is a lot of research on this one. very interesting. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the diversity of the intestinal flora? This one.
As a basic categorization of intestinal flora, as you may know, there are good, bad, and opportunistic bacteria with their specific function. Take a look at this slide. Before, we had often had good and bad as a sorting idea of the flora. Now we see additional idea, diversity, on top of good and bad, because it is reported that simply reducing bad bacteria is not good for us. Shin Sensei, what are some of the intestinal flora related disease?
Yes. Picking up the diseases caused by the disorder of intestinal flora, we see there are so many kinds of diseases related to intestinal microbiota. And intestinal flora also have something to do with diseases of the cranial nerve system. To put the mechanism between intestinal flora and diseases simply, here is a general flow as you might have learned even from your high school era. This is called symbiosis of human and intestinal microbiota. In opposite way, reduced immunity caused by decreased diversity of intestinal microbiota is called dysbiosis. Here shows an example of research data on intestinal bacteria and immunity. The research group of Professor Takeshi Ichinohe of the University of Tokyo investigated the function of immunity by injecting influenza virus to mice normally fed and mice fed with antibiotics. In the mice fed with antibiotics, the immune system was poor and became severe. The number of intestinal bacteria was low and there were many gram-negative bacteria, which is generally causing the inflammation inside intestines. So, simply put, increase the diversity of floras. To increase the diversity of intestinal flora, usually there are primarily two approaches, probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics is bacterium itself, deliver living good bacteria to intestine. Prebiotics is feed for bacteria, feed to grow good bacteria, typically oligosaccharide and dietary fiber. On top of previous two categories, probiotics and prebiotics, Mitsuoka Sensei added another category, biogenics. By the way, Mitsuoka Sensei is the origin of ALA Research Institute. I may want to cover this in the later part. In the interview in 2017, what Mitsuoka Sensei said is living bacteria do not grow in the intestines. Conducted an experiment to see how much it affects the lifespan of mice and proved the effect of killed bacteria. His definition of biogenics is food ingredients that beneficially affect the host by direct immunostimulation, suppression of mutagenesis, tumorigenesis, oxidation, hypercholesterolemia, or intestinal putrefaction. This shows functional mechanism of functional foods, including the categories of prebiotics, probiotics, and biogenics. Reference from Mitsuoka Sensei's paper. As shown, biogenics directly work to stimulation and suppression as well as improvement of intestinal flora condition. Okay, next, I'd like to have Daniela-san explain the experience with steak.
Thank you very much. So, my Seigen story. Seigen is the general name of the products of ALA Corporation. And there are 11 products. Every product has a sub-name. My story is that I was very health aware, and I still believe that if you want to care for your health, you have to care for what you eat, the quality of what you eat. Also exercise and relaxation, sleeping patterns. But I never imagined that other factors influence health as strongly as food. I was studying food so much, and also it's very paradoxical that if you feel ill, you have to stop eating actually to do a fasting. So I was always into eating good, fasting, taking care of my exercise and everything. But the air that I breathe was not a concern to me, especially because I do a lot of activity indoors. However, some of my translator jobs took me to, so these are some of my books. You can go to my homepage. I write in Japanese. There is also one English book. And my life actually changed in this year. And in October 27, 2017, what happened? So my translation job took me to Narita Airport, outside the airport. So I had to walk around the airport where the airplanes are stationed and go to the Narita Airport Police to help interrogate some drug dealers. And walking around the airport on that day, especially, not every day is so polluted, but that day was extremely polluted. I could not breathe. It was so bad that I couldn't even see clearly. The air was something like this, extremely polluted. And you have various factors, jet engines, also taxi, car, buses, exhaust fumes. Also, air pollution in Japan is influenced by, for example, industrial pollution from China. We also have here PM 2.5. We have heavy metals, lead, aluminium, coming from the air towards Japan. And also, there are research that says that viruses and bacteria are also lurking in the stratosphere. So that night, I started coughing so bad. But I've never been sick, so I didn't realize that I had become asthmatic. Zenso. And I thought that if I sleep, it's gonna go away. Like, you stop eating, you do a fasting, it will go away. This cough was supposed to go away after sleeping and taking it easy, but unfortunately, with each day, my breathing became more difficult and more difficult. Then I was coughing as well, and I started researching about what it can be. And well, the only lead I had was air pollution. But if you research the internet on air pollution, you find that in very prestigious medical journals. Like, for example, I found one in Lancet in 2013 with the title "The Carcinogenity of the Air Pollution." That was bad news for me. First of all, I thought, what if I get cancer? But I think my main concern was, cancer. However, I realized that it's not only cancer. Asthma can be as dangerous, if not more dangerous than cancer. I looked at the global pollution levels, and I found out WHO came with this data in 2014, and the sources of air pollution are just so you cannot escape from them. If you live in a city or even if you live in nature, there are so many forest fires now. So there is a lot of pollution that you cannot escape from. Many people who have the immune system down, and probably I was under stress, will develop complication with the lungs, with the heart. And what can you do? I mean, what I did also, I just bought a good air cleaner with HEPA filter for my home and also for my car. So you should always have that in your house and keep it working. But I still refused to go to the doctor because I was surrounded by doctors in my environment. But they all told me, like, you have to see a doctor. I was very stubborn. However, after about a week, I finally went to the doctor because I couldn't breathe anymore. And the doctor said, it's good you came. A little bit too late, but it's good you came. And he put me on a nebulizer, and immediately I could breathe again. And he gave me inhalers, steroid medicine, whatever I needed. He gave it to me. And I had to take that like about every 3-4 hours a day, which is very inconvenient. I also tried, what I'm good for, researching what kind of concoctions or natural products are good for health, because I don't want to be on steroids. I was cooking with ingredients that are anti-inflammatory, and herbs, healing foods, nutrients. I had a whole list, and I was making all sorts of combinations. It did help me, for example, capsaicin, like using a lot of hot pepper. That helped me breathe a little bit better, but it didn't treat me. It was just a short fix. It was not what I was hoping for. And my research, the more I researched, the more scared I became. I found a lot of universities putting out data and educational programs, like, for example, the BBC or Manchester University. I also put here some videos for you to see. And I also I recorded myself on my phone, my breathing. So just the breathing, that was like normal breathing back then. And when I was coughing, also when I had bouts of coughing. So let's see the movie first.
Okay. 聞こえてる？聞こえてない。
When you have asthma, the walls of your airways become inflamed. This makes the airways sensitive. The airways react strongly to certain irritating things that you breathe in. This reaction makes the airway muscles tighten and much less air flows to the lungs. Cells in the airways may also make more mucus than normal.
So that was my breathing, my coughing.
聞こえる？
Yeah, this was my daily life. I mean, it's not fun. And I had to take medication. It's very, very distressful. And what I was learning about asthma was not good news. I learned about sudden death in asthma. I learned that every day at least 3 people die of asthma. I learned about brittle asthma, which is, especially in children, you can die very quickly from brittle asthma. So the conclusion was the actual cause is unknown. On top of it, it's not curable. It can only be managed with medicine, like drugs, steroids, inhalers, nebulizers. And women are more affected than men. Women over 50 or 55 are the most affected. And the death rate peaks in the winter months, December and January. So I was really having a bad time in my life. This is an explanation from Manchester University, and you will see how the lungs behave when you're breathing. It's a very good educational mini video of 1 or 2 minutes.
And that allows the air to pass through that tube really efficiently. Now the air travels down the tube, and then what happens is the trachea branches into 2 bronchi, and here you can see one bronchus. Tiny little hairs called cilia in there, and the cilia waft any mucus and debris that's in that part of the lung up and out, and you can cough it up, swallow it, and get rid of it. And that keeps the airways nice and sterile. And as you get further into the lung, you can see that this bronchus branches into lots and lots of smaller tubes called bronchioles. Okay? And this happens all the way down the length of the lung. And at the end of the bronchioles are tiny little air sacs called alveoli. Now, in these alveoli, a process called gas exchange occurs, whereby oxygen passes into the blood and carbon dioxide passes out to be breathed out.
So how do the lungs differ in an asthmatic?
The actual capacity of your lungs to hold air is the same in an asthmatic, so you'd wonder why they have problems breathing. And the reason is it affects your larger airways. So this is the area in asthma that's affected. Mucus is produced by cells in this particular part of the lung, and that again helps to keep your airways clean. But if you get too much mucus, it can clog up this airway and stop the air going down, and then obviously slow down gas exchange. And another thing that happens, which is very common in an asthma attack, is that these airways are surrounded by muscle, and when that muscle tightens up and constricts, the airway becomes narrower. So the combination of that and an increase in mucus can cause a lot of problems in asthma.
I'm interested to find out a bit more about this mucus and how it can prevent someone from breathing properly.
Mucus is a really complex mixture, so there's a lot of water in there, there's lots of different salts and ions and sugars and things, and there's these really long molecules called mucins, and imagine they're like sugar-coated ropes, effectively, okay? So they're sticky because they're coated in sugars, and that acts as a trap for bacteria and other pollutants and things that are going to damage the lungs. If you get too much mucus or mucus that's too sticky and too thick, the cilia can't move that mucus up and out of the lungs, and then you get blockages, and that could be a really serious problem in an asthmatic.
Of course, there's medication.
So that you have an understanding of how what happens inside the lungs in an asthmatic patient. And the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute stated that asthma has no cure, and you'll have to keep on taking medicine. As you can see in this graph, there are 6 times more asthma and COPD patients than cancer. It's 60 million to 10 million. So I lived every day breathing heavily and coughing and wondering when will I die. I would wake up in the morning of the night, like about 3 or 4 a.m. because of coughing, and I had to take medicine and try to go back to sleep, so I couldn't rest. Daytime was the same routine, every few hours I had to be on. I bought an inhalator, and I couldn't travel, take an airplane, and because I wasn't okay. But 4 months and a half later, God replied to my searches. Why? Because I knew Mr. Miura from before, but I never needed his supplements. And one day at the doctor's seminar, I met him, and he was there with his brother and sister. And he asked me, "What happened to you? You look so livid. You're blue." That's because I was lacking oxygen, of course. And I told him that I do not have hay fever, as he just suggested, but I have asthma. And he said, "Well, we have some supplements that are good for autoimmune diseases, like hay fever, but you should try, just give it a try." So I said, "Of course, yes." The very next day I was in his office, and Dr. Shin gave me a 2-hour research presentation, made me understand everything, how these supplements work. And Mr. Miura and his family, they all came to see me. They kept feeding me their supplements. Take this, and take this, and take this. So that day I took a lot of these supplements that you can see here. And the very next day I continued to take the supplements. And I recovered 80% in the first 24 hours. But I didn't call him to tell him the good news, because I couldn't believe it myself. It was too good to be true. So I just kept one more day. And then the following day, when I woke up, I just forgot I had problems with asthma. And around 10 o'clock, I was like, "Oh, where is my cough, It's so easy to forget you're sick if you don't have anything. And so I waited until the end of the day, in the afternoon actually, And I felt so good. And I said, okay, even if it comes back, I'm still going to telephone him, and I'm going to tell him the good news. And I hoped he would believe me. And it was very easy to prove that I was not trying to apple polish him, because he saw me in what state I was, that I couldn't talk a whole sentence without coughing. And I felt so bad, and my color was gone and everything. So I met him after that. He was like, "Oh, you're fine again." He said, "Yeah, I have witnesses." But it took me 4 months and a half, and to tell you the truth, I never had asthma since. But I don't want to risk too much, so I'm always careful, and I continue to take the sodium supplements just in case. The next will be a BBC reenactment of a child. I want to touch a little bit the child asthma, because after I got healed by strike of fate, around me a lot of friends' children had asthma, and I said, okay, I can help them. So you have to understand how an asthma patient, yes, the Mira family and their company, it was a gift sent from heaven, I thought. So because they treat it, it's not managing the disease, it's basically treating. So I'd like to show you this video first. And this is based on true story.
It's the right one, isn't it, Blake? Doing okay, how are we having? I get to keep my job, and you get a better night's sleep than you would in the hospital. Good luck. You okay? What's up?
It's run out.
It's on a repeat prescription. The blue one, subbutamol. Is there any way that you could bring an inhaler over here? that someone could bring an inhaler over here. It's an emergency.
I'm sorry.
Please. Just a bit wet. I'll pop in and see if we can get something to hold the motor. Yeah, he's not so done, is he? Very hot. Why are you asking for? Coming for someone out of the way, please. Get this out. What did you say it was? What's up with him? Suspected meningitis. Present then let's get him sorted, all right?
Right, meningococcal epithelium. I need to be fast and efficient here, guys, yeah? I need some heptactin, 80 milligrams per kilo. I need a VM, and we get some fluid that's 20 milligrams per kilo. So I need to get a line of fluid.
Not looking good.
No, that's not fine for in here. Stand by the eye.
Yeah. Anything?
Let's give him another milligram of adrenaline, please.
Doing everything you can for him, you know. Just that. I wouldn't have left. They kept us waiting. I have to work. This isn't just my fault. That's BF.
Okay, let's go back to shock. Okay, charging. Stand clear. Shocking. Let's go again. Charlie, do CPR. Right, charging. Stand clear. Shocking.
Silence for the one could be something else.
Right, get up to pediatric ICU. This is one patient they are going to take.
So, can you hear me? Why I'm showing you this is because it's exactly what happened to my friend's son, and I will give you some cases. 9-year-old Mihna, he lives in Romania. He's asthmatic from the age of 4. And the mother is a medical doctor. Here is Mihna with me. He's a little scoundrel, very, very cute, full of life and enormous appetite for food and play. His dad was my karate colleague some 30 years ago, and also the bodyguard of the president of Romania. Now, he's been having asthma from the age of 4. When they came in 2018 to Japan for a karate competition, in which also the boy was competing, and his mom called me on the phone and she said, we need to take him to hospital. So I took them to ALA instead, because based on my experience, he would be in better hands. So this is in the office of the president, Mr. Miura, with his mother and father, and we took a family picture with Mr. Miura and his. In this picture, you can see the founder of the company, Mr. Miura's father. This unit. He looks very, very young, as you can see, but also he's very strong. on his hand he can lift Mikna, who is a very heavy boy. And this convinced Mikna to take Sagan, because this is the secret to his power at 80 years old. Mikna followed the treatment with Sagan, and that was in March, right? In May 15, I received an email from his mom in which he said, "We are so happy to give you good news. Mikna is doing so well, even though he's had asthma from the age of 4. Now, and he had bronchospasm. By taking salbutamol inhalator and being hospitalized, taking cortisone, Flixotide, these are Romanian medicine, through inhalators, he had problems breathing, and she, as a medical doctor, was very afraid of steroid medicine and especially the cortisone, because he's growing up, he's developing, his body is still growing up, so this is very dangerous. So to make it short, after 1 month of treatment, from April 17, we have stopped using spray inhalator, and now he can run 2 hours playing basketball, and he does karate, and he never stops. It's like it's incredible. It's like Michael Jordan, and he wants to become like Michael Jordan. So she sent me pictures and videos with the son, and she wanted me to pass the good news to Mr. Miura. And here you can see Mikna doing karate, basketball, and he renounced in the middle of the medicine. He renounced to all those medicine. Now he's not taking anything. And 5 years of asthma was cured in a few weeks. Another case is a Japanese boy. He is Mr. Miura's eldest son, best friend. He's 10 years old, and he was asthmatic since the age of 1 year and 4 months. And now he's 10, right? Mr. Owa, not Mr. but Owa Masataka, took Mr. Miura's supplements. And I have a letter from his mother. She sent me, actually, this is a line. And I translated the line for you. And I will give you the data later. And she said like this: "My child developed asthma at the age of 1 year and 4 months. Since then, for about 8.5 years, I have been using drugs and steroids such as Singrea, Meptin, and Adair. Before he entered elementary school, my son was taken by ambulance to hospital 3 times, and he was taken to emergency room in the middle of the night countless times, about 4 times a month. My husband's father, Masataka's grandfather, had 8 siblings, 7 of whom have childhood asthma, and 2 of whom have died young because of asthma. Doctors said it's genetical and quite strong, so it's tough for doctors to do anything. Last year, that was in 2017, in November, when he missed school for about 10 days because of asthma, my son's lungs swelled up with air and he couldn't exhale at all, and his rib arch disappeared. The chest became straight, full of air. It couldn't deflate. And when he had the seizure, and cough, it couldn't stop, and it was so difficult to breathe. And usually when children get to that late stage and so heavy, they can't even eat. Everything they eat, they will spit it out like a fountain, she said. When I called an ambulance, the first question I get is, how many minutes have passed? How many minutes have passed since the attack? So the ambulance needs to have this information, because in the worst case scenario, the child might die in 30 minutes. So the ambulance staff is very scared of this. They need to prepare a lot of stuff depending on the urgency. Medicine, syringe, equipment, and emergency personnel must be available in the ambulance car. Sometimes the medicine doesn't work and it becomes very worrisome. Hearing my story, Mr. Muir asked me, why don't you try my supplements? So I used Pearl, I, Power, and EX. And in less than 2 months since he started taking it, for some reason, his asthma healed like a miracle. And since he had only 1 mild attack. At this point, I didn't know what was happening to Masataka's body. I wondered if such a mysterious thing can happen. However, when he started drinking Seigen, I was worried that he would go to the bathroom more often or bedwetting in the middle of the night. But that never happened. In February, there was a marathon event at his school. When he was in the 1st and 2nd grade, because of his asthma attacks, and this is in February, right? It's when the asthma season is the peak. He would run, but he would be like the last one, the 34th place. And even so, we wanted to encourage our son, and we would say, oh, you ran so well, you're such a good boy. But this year, even though he had been drinking Seigen for a little over 1 month, at this year's marathon, he came in the 1st place. I can't forget Masataka's words, breathing is easy. Until now, he had been living with painful breathing ever since he was born. My heart hurt for so long, and I never felt more joy in my family like now. I never knew when the next attack would be, and so I was always nervous. I was scared all the time, and I remember crying on the hospital corridors when I saw Masataka's unconscious, changing to purple in the ambulance because he could not get oxygen. I couldn't sleep deeply because you never know when the next bout of attack would come and the next sudden seizure. So my body was scattered with tiredness after I gave birth to my 2nd son. Fortunately, in Shinagawa ward, where she's living in Tokyo, all health insurance, hospitalization, ambulance, and medicine is covered by insurance until the end of the junior high school. But this doesn't happen in all the wards of Tokyo. And some parents who have asthmatic children, they have to pay every month at least 20,000-30,000 yen, if not more. So I lived so stressful life for so many years that I forgot the feeling of a carefree life. But that stress memory is starting to fade away. What was the medicine for 8 years and a half so far? What was it? She's having a rhetorical question mark. What is the source of change in these 2 months? She's bewildered. She cannot believe. She doesn't understand what's going on. But Dr. Shin knows, so he will give us explanation. In the next picture, so this is the boy, very cheerful with his youngest brother, and this is the 1st place diploma at the marathon in February 15. So now the Masataka is drug-free, just on Seigen, completely healed. I have another friend, doctor. She's Russian. She and her husband live in Cyprus, and they have a 7-year-old, extremely smart boy and such a good child. This is him. He is not asthmatic, but he has food allergy. And she showed me this is in Russian, but I have a translation for you. He was so allergic to so many things, and after taking Segen, Pearl, Power, and EX, in a few months his food allergies went down to only 1 in red, egg white, and 4 yellow. Okay. Okay, so yes, this is Masataka with his mother. Mr. Lactic. What? This is it? Okay. Yes. This is the data. It's a lung. Hi. Oh, okay. So his lung. This is the proof that his lung now functions perfectly well. Okay. Okay, this is the mother explaining what happened, but basically it's all in my lecture. I just read to you. These are the products that you use, right? And so.
Okay. We made an intestinal flora analysis by next generation sequencer and the acceptance from Watson's family. Watson's mother and father also took our products and examined the flora of the three. By the way, Watson and his father's flora pattern, okay, were very similar, but they are different from his father. I think this shows that the child is taking over the mother's flora as mentioned before. Here, what I would like you to pay attention to is the change in bifidobacteria, so-called good bacteria. After taking our products, the proportion of bifidobacteria increased in all three. In addition, short-chain fatty acid levels also increased in all three. Bifidobacterium products. Bifidobacterium produces acetic acid, which is assumably converted to butyric acid by another intestinal bacteria. Butyric acid increases T-reg cells and works for allergies. The combination of three products Oakun is expected to increase short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids increase the number of T-reg cells that stop his runaway immune response. Allergies such as asthma are caused by a runaway immune response. In order to stop this runaway, it is important to increase the number of T-reg cells. Butyric acid increases T-reg cells. Allergies are also an imbalance in the immune system. Lactic acid bacterium LP284 contained in Segen EX is a unique lactic acid bacterium with excellent immune activity. In particular, kill cells that have been sterilized have a strong immunomodulatory effect and regulate the immune balance by enhancing Th1 cells. The figure shows the cytokine production when immune cells are brought to brought into contact with LP284 cells in vitro. And this shows that LP284 has a function of strongly inducing TNF alpha and INF gamma. I'll cover it more in details later. As a summary of Wakun's case, here shows the hypothetical model of immune balance when the 4 types of T cells are out of balance. The immune function goes out of control, causing allergies and autoimmune diseases. This was conceivably what was happening to him. With a combination of our products, short-chain fatty acids, enhanced T-level, and lactic acid bacterium LP284 enhances TH1 to improve T-cell balance. Let me skip this slide. And next.
So the supplements work for a plethora of diseases. We also have some very impressive pictures of patients who had atopic dermatitis. And you can see from the pictures how horrible the situation was. And after using Sagen at the age of 47, her skin became so healed and so smooth. Also, we have, so in these 30 years, of course, you can imagine they have so many patients. We're just giving just for you to have an idea. There is a doctor who has lung cancer. And this doctor was a good friend of Mr. Miura. Mr. Miura gave him supplements.
He by himself.
He bought himself.
Yeah.
He bought himself. I think that's how you became friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he healed his lung cancer with these supplements. And he was so impressed that he wrote a book based on his data, because he took data all along, every day. So there was, in 2 months.
Yes,
Yeah.
In 2 months.
In 2 months. I mean, before you have here the cancerous tumor in December 2014, and in January 2015 it was gone. So he was very impressed, and now he's using in his clinic on his patients. Another case is ulcerative colitis. This person is from Osaka.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And he used to be on steroids. He was very, very thin. I don't have a picture here to show you, but he was so thin that he could barely walk. And he improved his intestinal flora with Sagen, and now he has a normal life. He's totally cured. Okay.
So now that we introduce our product with how it works, from now we want to share the characteristics of ALA products and their developments.
The main product of ALA is the soybean milk fermented products. The feature is that soy milk is used as a medium and that it is co-cultured with several species of lactic acid bacteria and yeast. It contains lactic acid bacteria metabolites such as amino acids, organic acids, isoflavones, and peptides derived from soy milk, and bacterial cell components. By culturing several bacteria in a sense, we are attempting to simulate the intestines of a healthy person in a tank. And I assume that it is more effective than drinking living lactic acid bacteria. This is an electronic photograph, micrograph of the SFP culture. You can see several species of lactic acid bacilli and lactic acid capside and yeast. The growth of lactic acid bacteria is suppressed by the lactic acid produced by themselves. Fortunately, however, yeast uses its lactic acid produced vitamins and fatty acids. Then the generated nutrients are used by lactic acid bacteria for growth. This culture method of lactic acid bacteria and yeast is used for the production of SFP. ALA has commercialized this bulk solution of SFP. In addition to this, we have also commercialized a specific lactic acid bacteria. First, the purpose of using bulk solution is to improve the diversity of intestinal bacteria. This table shows the results of examining the intestinal bacteria when 5 volunteers ate a meat-based diet, so-called Western diet, for 3 days. The composition of fecal Clostridium, which is considered to be a harmful bacteria, was increased by consumption of Western diets, and the intestinal environment was becoming worse. On the other hand, the increase in Clostridium was suppressed, and Bifidobacterium was increased by ingesting SFP together with Western diet. These results suggest that SFP is useful for improving the intestinal environment. The fecal beta glucuronidase activity, which is thought to be related to the production of carcinogen, was increased by consumption of Western diet. The function of beta glucuronidase activity has been reported to induce colorectal cancer by producing carcinogens. On the other hand, the increase in beta glucuronidase activity was suppressed by ingestion of SFP together with Western diet. These results suggest that SFP may improve the intestinal environment and lead to suppression of colorectal cancer. Based on these results, we investigated the effects of SFP on colon tumors induced by dimethylhydrazine carcinogen in mice. The incidence of colon tumors was suppressed in the SFP group. Since unfermented soy milk did not have an inhibitory effect, it was speculated that the carcinogen inhibitor was produced by fermentation. Next. I would like to introduce a lactic acid bacteria LP284 strain isolated as a potent immunomodulator. Lactobacillus plantarum 2 LP284 strain was selected from among 2,000 or more lactic acid bacterial strains. This figure shows that heat-killed LP284 is superior in TNF-alpha production from peritoneal exudate cells in mice compared to other lactic acid bacteria, other lactobacillus strains and other lactobacillus plantar strains in vitro. In addition, the characteristic of LP284 is that the immunostimulatory activity is stronger when it is heated and killed than when it is living. The growth of cancer cells transplanted into mice was more strongly suppressed in the group orally administered killed bacteria than in the living bacteria. We have already obtained a patent on anti-tumor agents and producing methods of LP284 strain. Next, we compared the immunostimulatory power of LP284 with the lactic acid bacterial strains used in commercially available yogurt. The 5 strains of lactobacillus and the strain of Bifidobacterium were isolated from yogurt and killed by heating before use. This figure shows the induction of IL-gamma and IL-4 in human peripheral blood mononuclear cells, PBMC, stimulated by heat-killed lactobacillus or bifidobacterium cells in vitro. LP284 strain induced the highest level of IFN-gamma and IL-4 among the 6 strains. The number of cells producing interferon IFN-gamma was higher than that of IL-4. In the NK activity test of human PBMC against K562 cancer cells, LP284 showed higher activity than other strains. From these results, we speculate that LP284 acts to develop Th1 cells in the immune cell balance model. However, we have to do more experiments in detail. To give an example of research, dendritic cell immunotherapy is one of the methods of cancer treatment. It is thought that activating Th1 with lactic acid bacteria will enhance its therapeutic effect. So we plan to use LP284 for this in the future. This figure shows the level of salivary secretory IgA in healthy volunteers who ingested LP284 orally. It is thought that increasing secretory IgA is effective in preventing infection and controlling food allergies. IgA in saliva was increased about twice by ingestion of LP284 in 2 weeks. On the other hand, when the intake was stopped, the IgA concentration decreased. From this result, the immunostimulatory effect of ingestion of of LP284 was also observed in humans, but absolutely, we further require studies using a larger number of subjects. While we have been finding further cases, making continuous development of products and conducting further researches, there are still so many areas we have to and we want to explore, such as elucidation of reason why kill bacteria exceeds living bacteria with respect to immune cell activity, and identification of each product of biogenics, and further researches of LP284, including in vivo and in vitro. Thank you for your valued attention.
Last but not least, we would like to share the history and spirit of lactic acid bacteria business. The first director of our institute is Dr. Takeo Mizutani. Dr. Mizutani engaged in intestinal bacterial research with Professor Emeritus Tomotani Mitsuoka at Buisines, Japan's largest comprehensive research institution, and then started research on the functionality of lactic acid bacteria producing substance together. Dr. Choji Kaneuchi, honorary advisor, has a background in established the Weekend Microbial Preservation Center and promoted the collection of lactic acid bacteria strains in ALA from all over the world. The research results so far have led to the acquisition of patents in Japan and overseas. Daniela, can you give a brief history of a lactic acid bacteria product?
Yes. Fermented milk has a very long history. We have information that about around 500 BC in India, in Central Asia, dairy products were produced and consumed. India, the place birth of Buddha, and in their stories, it is said that Buddha wandered between life and death after penance, doing very hard practice. He was exhausted, and a girl passing by named Nandavara offered him a yogurt-like milk gruel to save. It's like a milk porridge, and she saved Buddha's life. He was able to regain his energy and meditate under the Bodhi tree and gain finally enlightenment. So this is probably this is curd. The milk has 5 stages of fermentation and production in Indian Ayurveda medicine especially. And there we have a word, daikomi. For who understands Japanese, it says 5 days. I will show you here, milk. From dairy milk or from beans, you can have soy milk. And then if you ferment it, you get yogurt or cream or amazake or natto if it's beans. Now, if you separate the liquid, it becomes curd, and this is the 3rd stage. In Japanese, this is called raku. When it becomes curd, it becomes shoso. And if it's milk, it becomes, afterwards in the 4th stage, you can make butter out of it. But in Ayurveda, if you heat the butter and you burn the protein and you leave 100% pure oil, it becomes ghee. And this ghee will never change, will hardly change the quality. So it never goes wrong. And they say in Buddhism, at the, I'll show you this picture, at the Shinran was a very famous Buddhist monk. And he said that daigo, or ghee, the fifth element, the ghee, is like a panacea for intractable illnesses. Shinran, this monk, is actually the founder of the Jodo Shinshu sect. And he refers to daigo as a magical medicines that cure all illnesses. Here he talks about the 5 stages in Nirvana Sutra texts, 6 volume. So it has a very long history. These fermented products. In fermentation, it means lactic acid bacteria, rich substances. This is the sutra, Nirvana Sutra. And the 5th generation, we have here Mr. Houzui Otani on the left lower picture, who read the books and he found out that what he said about the daigo. Okay. Then Mr. Kozui started the Central Asian Expedition Project for the purpose of investigating the remains of Buddha. He and his team members made the Silk Road expeditions 3 times from the Meiji era to the Taisho era, around 150 years ago, in order to pursue the correct interpretation of the Buddhist scriptures, as well as to embark on a scientific elucidation of daigo, what daigo means. In 1932, together with microbiologist Kazuyoshi Masagaki, he established the Otani Kozui Agriculture Chemistry Research Institute in Dalian, China, and began researching the daigo. Then in 1939, he succeeded in producing lactic acid bacteria producing substance and obtained a patent for the microbial culture method. Yes.
Mr. Kazuyoshi Masagaki gave 2 speeches in the Diet in 1949 and 1950. The speech entitled Lifespan Theory and Effective Bacteria called on the state to promote the health of the people, especially the health of the mother and fetus during pregnancy by using SFP. After that, Mr. Kazuyoshi Masagaki continued his research on SFP, but from the 1960s to the 1980s, a person who supported Mr. Kazuyoshi Masagaki, both publicly and privately, is Mr. Fukuichi Sato. Mr. Masagaki transferred Mr. Sato a method for producing SFP behind Mr. Sato's great achievements, but Mr. Sato actually struggled because he could only produce it on a small scale and did not have a sales channel. At that time, it was in 1989 when Mr. Sato met my father, Kazushi Miura, who had already achieved many success as a business person. Kazushi Miura realized the effectiveness and goodness of SFP and decided to work with Mr. Sato to manufacture and sell SFP. It was the start of Seigen, our product. Since then, over the past 30 years, we have been working on research and development of SFP and have made many products. Respecting the history of SFP, we'd like to continue to explore, develop, and expand this research and business originated in the Buddhist scriptures 2,500 years ago toward the future.
So even though your company is only 30 years old, actually the history of your product is much longer than that.
Yeah.
And you just improved it and developed it and patented it, and you're healing people with it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Dr. Shin, Mr. Mira.
Thank you very much.
So is this the end of presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, okay, before the kind of open question to anybody who is listening online, as a facilitator, let me question to ALA people because today, especially we have a CEO of the company, and I'm currently working in 4 companies, and I'm kind of pretty much interested in the business model of ALA. So first question from my side is, I know the ALA business is more like a membership business. It's not the kind of broadly selling to the consumer. So can you tell me why you are choosing the membership business rather than broadly selling to the market? Yeah, you can speak in Japanese.
Okay.
If comfortable.
日本の法律だと、食品と、薬品があってでサプリメント、うちのこの制限もそうですけど食品に分類されるんですね。で食品に分類されるものっていうのは、何かに効くっていうことがあってはいけないという基本ですので、その効能効果っていうことも歌えませんし、そういうことで、またこの乳酸菌生産物質のそういった良いところっていうのを理解していただくために毎月30カ所ぐらいでセミナーを行っていたり、今はちょっとアプリも作ったりしてその中でもできるようにしてるんですけど、そういった形でですねご理解いただいた方に、ご理解いただいてご購入いただくという非常に手間はかかるんですけれどもそういうやり方でしてます。
So because the Japanese law is restricting in a way legally how you term your healing product. So you have 2 categories. One is chemical drugs, and the other one is food-based. And his product is all food-based. There are no chemicals in it. It's just fermented soybeans. So this falls under the category of food supplement. But when you fall into this category, then by law you cannot state that your food supplement heals anything because it's not a medical drug. So unfortunately, that restricts the way he markets the product. Of course, he would like to tell everyone what his product does, but he cannot because of the Japanese law. And this law actually is not only in Japan, as we know, it's all over the world. So he opens about 30 seminars every month around Japan. He travels a lot with his team of researchers and doctors. And he explains to the people why the food supplement could help them improve their health, but they cannot state it's gonna cure you. But the people who take the supplements, like me, I'm not supposed to say the word cure, so I'm not going to say the word cure, but it's I got such an improvement in the quality of life that even though asthma might not be cured, as the medical journal says, ever, it's incurable, but now my condition improved so much that I can take a break and I can feel normal again. So everyone should just try. It's just a food supplement, like you would eat yogurt, but only that it's a little bit more rich in lactobacteria and other bacteria that is very good and benefits your intestinal flora and therefore your immune system.
Yeah, Daniela, perfect translation. Thank you so much. And actually, I used to be working in Procter & Gamble Japan, consumer product company. And at that time, I was still remembering it was so difficult for us to claim the kind of message of function. So I think I personally envy your company because more claimability is much higher compared to such a broad consumer product company. I understand the point. So sorry, second question from my side.
And we have Dr. Shin who said he took the probiotics from the doctor, and still his flora, when he did some research, the lactobacillus was 0 after 6 months of taking those.
Yeah. Sorry. Again, this business question from my side. Actually, ALA is having the research institute itself as well as a sales organization.
Yes.
So in that case, that would be it looks like a good collaboration between a research-oriented business and also the market-oriented business. So the question from my end is typically your product is produced from more seed side, research side, or more from a market side, market needs. Which one is a typical business?
うちの会員さんは会員さんがたくさんいるじゃない、でその会員さんたちのニーズがあるわけ。例えば一番最近出したのは認知症にねなりたくないからそういうのを作ってってことを10年ぐらい前から言われてて、でそういうのずっとやってて、で、ちょうど1年ぐらい前にそういう商品を出したり、うちのそのメンバーさんのニーズで作る商品っていうのもあります。あとはそこまで言ったやつ。
So when he goes around Japan, if he talks to the clients, he also listens to their needs, and he tries to make the product that they need. And one of the examples, his most recent product, it was about the mental decline, right? And he came up with the latest supplement, the 11th one, which attends to the needs of his members.
あとは、例えば今日詳しくは話さなかったんですけど、乳酸菌生産物質のタンクがタンクがあってね、最初は上積みだけの商品だったんですけど、そのうち下の部分も含んだホールの商品ができて、で特にそのがんの方で会員でがんの方でそのホールの方を飲んだ方が効果がいいっていうふうに聞こえてきて、でその中の何がいいのかなっていうことを探していって、今日話に出てきた LP284 っていう菌が一番免疫活性が高いっていうことが分かって、そこの商品開発につながっていったっていうことで、どっちかっていうとその、マーケットの声で、あとはその会員性のいいところはその例えば商品を作ってそれが良かったか悪かったかっていうのをダイレクトに僕が聞くことができるわけですよね。もうあちこち行ってあれ飲んだけど全然ダメだったっていうことも言われるかもしれないし、でも逆に言うと良かったらすごく良かったってすぐリアクションしてくれるので、そういう意味ではそれを使ってる人との距離がすごく近くって、そこのニーズに応えているからずっと続いているんだと思います。
Very interesting is that he listens to the voice of the patient, the clients. And for example, when he makes the product, the fermented beans, in a tank, the tank is, the upper part and the lower part is divided, and he makes different type of medicine from the upper part and from the lower part. And people who used the lower part reported that they had cancer patients that felt much better on the lower type. So he understood and he did research to understand why is that so, and he ended up finding the LP284 and patenting this product. So he listens to the voice of his clients directly, and this two-way collaboration and
communication.
communication actually helps the company grow.
Yes, this is also one of the envious business model. As again, from my experience, typically business model is based on manufacturer, wholesaler, and the retailer. This is the typical business model. So in that case, retailer sells the product to the consumer. But the consumer, retailer, wholesaler, manufacturer. So basically, there are 4 organizations. So from manufacturer point of view, it's really difficult to listen to the consumer because it's quite far. But compared to the typical business model, maybe ALA business model is more close to the consumer. That's why kind of listen to them easily and quick to produce. And that would be the one which I took as a takeaway from the point.
And the food.
Lastly, since today we have our CEO,
Yes.
I want to listen to your personal kind of future, how do I say, dream. What kind of business expansion you are seeking for, personally or corporately?
今日、シンさんが後半に出した、データは、もともとその樹状細胞療法とか NK 細胞療法とかをやっているクリニックさんがあって、そのクリニックさんが樹状細胞とか NK 細胞を培養している間に、患者さんの免疫を上げたところにそれを打てば、より成績が上がるでしょうということで作ったデータを今日紹介したんですけど、そういった、医療機関でもそういうコラボレートをしたいというリクエストがあってああいうデータを作ってるんですけど、そういう意味でその医療機関っていうのは一つの今後の方向性かなと思います。
As Dr. Shin explained about the immune system being activated by the dendrite cells, he would like to continue the research with the medical institutions that have this kind of research facilities at this level with patients. So that it's an open invitation for everyone who's interested.
あとは今日喘息の話とかでありましたけど、喘息とかそのお子さんとかも多かったりするので、そういう方とかより若い層の、ね、方にも、リーチしていきたいなというふうに思ってます。
So he helped us go through life and solve some medical problems, some health problems, and he's reaching children as from children to very elderly people, and he would like to continue to do this kind of job. And I may add, it's a food supplement, so there are no side effects. So it's safe, it works. Okay, it doesn't work. There is no danger.
あとは、その今日のアレルギーの話とダイバーシティの話があって、要は今の子供たちって僕たちの頃よりアレルギーがすごく多いですよね。でそれはやっぱりダイバーシティが落ちてるっていうのも大きな原因かなと思って、だからそういう意味では私たちが子供の時より今のお子さんの方がこういったものを必要としているのかなというふうに思っています。
So these days, because of lack of diversity in the immune flora, many children have all sorts of allergies and health issues like asthma or immunodeficiencies. So he would like to have more of an impact into the children's life and heal.
Yeah, typically, in generally speaking, membership business is more targeting at the elderly
Yes.
or all kind of upper middle layers. So I think Miura-san's point, like more targeting at the younger layer, that would be a kind of fantastic business expansion potential. And, okay, thank you so much. And let me close my question time, and then let me pass my mic to all of you who are listening online. So please. Raise a voice without unmuting. Any question? Online?
I have a quick question.
Daniela, can you take it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So I'm curious if you try to work with people in medicine to get your product used in the hospital, and what the kind of process it will take to accomplish that goal.
Okay, so you're asking if this is the supplements are possible to be used by doctors in hospitals?
Yeah. Well, what would it take to accomplish that goal? Because I know you said the Japanese law and laws generally around the world don't allow for supplements to be used in that way.
どんなプロセスをしたら病院の中で処方されるんですよ。どうすればいいか。
病院の中で。どうしますか。
法律に引っかかってる。
まあ病院の食事としてですね。なるほど。
So doctors who are independent, they do not treat people who are on the national health insurance. In their own clinics and hospitals, actually can use whatever they want. You see, so these kind of doctors, they do use these salient supplements, but it's not covered by insurance. So as a doctor, if you're covered by insurance in your practice, you cannot use these kind of supplements. You have to choose.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other question from people online? Or any question from the room here? Like Onyo Sensei, you have a question.
全部さっきの質問ですか。
Okay. If you have more interest in asking specific question about some technical side, or even interest in the kind of product itself, yeah, Onya Sensei, do you have?
Yeah. Okay, one question.
Okay, question from Onya Sensei.
So
you can speak to the speaker.
Yeah, your company has both research institutions and business, marketing sections, right? And you communicate. It looks that you communicate very well. But in your experience, what is the difficulty from the researcher side to the business side? And what is the difficulty from the business side to the researcher side? I'd like to listen to your experience. I mean the communication. Sometimes I suppose that I want to do this, but the business side, no. And your side, we have such needs, but it's difficult from researcher side. Right.
まあ、シンさんが三浦さんから受けて、いや、それ無理ですよとかいうことが実際あるかどうかとか。
そうですよね。正直、あまりそういうことは、発酵液を、広く広める意味では、上では、うちのこの、いわゆるクローズドマーケットの世界では、非常にやりやすいところがある。で、結局オープンマーケットだと、リサーチしたその研究の機能性、これについては言えないけれども、クローズドマーケットであれば、それをある程度言うことができて、広めることができる。そういうメリットはあります。
あと、例えばその認知症のも何回か施策があったんです。で、何回か会員さんたちに試してもらったの。で、ちょっと効きすぎるなとか、そういうなかなか普通、臨床試験でそういうのやろうと思ったら結構大変なんですけど、例えば途中耳にいいサプリメントっていうのを作ったことがあって、それは発売しなかったんですけど、でもそれもある人はいいし、ある人は全然っていうしっていう感じで、こういうのを今やってるんだけど、試したい人みたいなこと言うと手を挙げてくれるんだよね。だからそれはすごくやりやすくって、あと作る方に関しては、その目的ありきかな。で、うちの場合は、その機能、要はだから、このサプリメントって、効くっていうのはダメな世界なんですけど、 うちは逆に言うと、そこしか求めてないんですよ。価格が高いかもしれないし、何かもしれないけど、その、飲んだ人に効果があるっていうところしか実は求めてなくて、それはサプリメントをオープンでやっていく上では、逆に言うと当たり障りがないものの方がいいんですよね。だから僕らはそういうのと逆のスタイルでやってますね。だからそういう意味じゃやっぱりこのクローズドじゃないとなかなか成立しないかなって感じでしょうか。少し英語で訳する。
The reply was that there is no trouble in communication between management and research. And also, it really helps them. It's a closed market, and their members are the voice that, if they make a new supplement, before deciding to sell it, to make it a product, they will ask the members to become volunteer if they have any needs for this. So they volunteer and they give their opinion. It was too strong or not strong enough. And based on that, he makes the production decisions. So there was, it's a very fortunate that they have this closed membership, and it's like a big family and very easy to make business.
That's very interesting. Although the business model itself is a kind of closed membership model, but the way of operating the business is more like an open innovation style. Like listen to consumer and quickly go to the research, and listen to the researcher and quickly go to the market. I think that would be kind of one of the envious model for as an open innovation. So I also try to understand more by listening to all of you after this session personally.
No bureaucracy.
No bureaucracy. Okay, thank you so much. So now the end for this business leaders course session. So again, from a facilitator point of view, thank you so much to three of you today. Thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。